Welcome to Podcasters Assemble, Kongzillathon.
It's the rematch you've all been waiting for.
Directed by Adam Wingard.
Starring
Millie Bobby Brown.
Julian Dennison,
Brian Tyree Henry.
Kyle Chandler,
Rebecca Hall.
and Alexander Skarsgård.
In this fourth part of the Legendary Pictures Monsterverse series.
Following 2017's Kong Skull Island and 2019's Godzilla King of the Monsters.
The two biggest monsters of cinema square off in this epic battle for the ages. It's
Godzilla
Godzilla
vs.
vs. Kong.
Let's get ready to crumble!
These are dangerous times.
Godzilla's out there and he's hurting people and we don't know why.
There's something provoking him that we're not seeing here.
I'm of the same opinion.
The myths are real. There was a war. And they're the last ones standing.
I keep reaching for greatness because I'm built from it.
Who bows to who?
Nobody gon' stop me. Here we go.
Kong bows to no one.
Here we go.
Calling all podcasters. We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a special bulletin. We're reporting live from the We Can Make This Work, probably podcast network. We are receiving reports of, well, what can only be described as a gigantic ape rampaging through the streets of New York City. Wait, this just in. According to our overseas correspondents, there's been a confirmed sighting of a massive reptilian creature off the coast of Japan. Oh, the humanity! If you have any information regarding these two Goliath monsters or their film franchises, please record on your dictaphone and post or telegraph your audio transmission to us at probablywork.com. Please, hurry. Time is running out. We've just been told that the mayor is evacuating the city and the president dispatching military forces. I don't know how to describe what I'm looking at, dear listeners. They appear to be squaring off. Oh, jeez. This is it, people. The battle of the century. It's Godzilla vs. Kong. A fire-breathing lizard takes on the giant angry ape. In this, a no-holds-barred clash between the king of the monsters and the titan of Skull Island. Who will come out on top? Why are they fighting? How did that monkey get so big? Find out on the latest season of Podcasters Assemble, Kongzillathon.
Podcasters Assemble.
Hello, my name is Ben Thompson. I am from Badass of the Week.
Hello, I'm Robert Kelly, host and writer of Record All Monsters.
Yo, this is Corey from The World Is My Burrito.
Hey, this is Chris from Comic Zombie and Epic Fails of History.
Hello, I'm Stephen White, co-host of the Super Mega Crash Brothers Turbo podcast.
Eric Slater here from Epic Fails of History and Too Young for This Trek.
This is Justin Aki, graphic designer and one-half of Significant Nautico.
This is Troidal Power from the Power Playthroughs podcast.
Hello, my name is Zach. I am a guest host from the Neatcast, where three guys usually get together, talk about offbeat news, sports, and weird tales from around the world like cryptids, aliens, and monsters.
This is Steve Whitkamp from Geek to Geek Media, here to share my thoughts on the recently released Godzilla vs. Kong.
It's finally here, the moment we've all been waiting for. The hype, all the build-up, all the podcasting. It's all led to this.
Godzilla vs. Kong.
Kong versus Godzilla.
And today we are talking about 2021's direct-to-video King Kong vs. Godzilla, or Kong vs. Godzilla, or whatever the correct order of those words are.
Godzilla vs. Kong 2021.
Now streaming on HBO Max.
And we are here to talk about Godzilla vs. Kong.
Big Chunky versus Big Monkey.
Winner take all, or we'll see.
Spoiler alert. There was a time I kind of thought I'd never see this movie. After numerous rights issues preventing a new crossover to the multiple delays that came once the film had been completed, the road to seeing this movie felt like a journey in its own right.
So, we got to it. We finally watched Godzilla vs. Kong, the big movie where the big monsters are going to smash into each other.
So Godzilla vs. Kong just dropped yesterday, watched it last night.
So we just watched 2021's Godzilla vs. Kong from Legendary Pictures.
But we finally got it, and despite some issues I have with the film, I do believe it was worth the wait.
As someone who very much enjoyed the previous 3 MonsterVerse films, I went into this with some cautious optimism.
I was really excited, of course, to see this movie.
I'm more a fan of Godzilla's Toho-created adversaries than of King Kong, to be honest, but Kong Skull Island showed that Legendary Pictures knows how to use Kong to make an entertaining kaiju movie.
I'm very glad that Warner Brothers has decided to same day on HBO Max, so I was able to watch it at home, so that was cool.
Now, I watched this film on opening day on HBO Max, which is not where I wanted to watch it, but where it was convenient for me to watch it.
I would have definitely preferred seeing this one on the big screen, but it was nice to watch in the safety of my own home.
And while it may not have been a full theater experience, I did my best to actually replicate that.
So a lot of times when I'm here, I feel like my role is to give context, and I feel like we've been living in the context of Godzilla vs. Kong over the past, since 2014 when Godzilla came out, and we have been building to this.
Okay, so this movie rocked.
First of all, this movie blew me away.
First off, really liked the movie.
My first viewing experience left me unsure about how I felt, mainly because of a bias that I've been spouting on here for weeks now.
Okay, now, I have to confess, I did not see Skull Island. I've never seen Skull Island. I wanted to watch it for this podcast, but I was in Brazil for the last 4 months, and I could not. There was no amount of cajoling or pleading or begging that would convince my wife and her family to watch a King Kong movie with me. So I don't know who most of these characters are and what the story is with this. I assume Hollow Earth comes from this, I hope.
After about a week had passed, I watched it again with no expectations of anything and found myself coming out the other side a bit more fulfilled.
So I'm not entirely sure what there is for me specifically to say, besides, I really enjoyed this movie.
Liked it quite a lot.
I've actually already watched this movie 3 times.
There were some terrible parts, but overall, you want a giant monster fight? You get several giant monster fights.
Some stuff to nitpick, but whatever.
But, like, look, this is freaking King Kong versus Godzilla, right? This is a Game of Thrones, right? I shouldn't, know the backstory in order to follow what the hell's happening here, right?
Pretty entertaining movie at the end of the day.
And you know what? I think this movie did the best job of being the big movie where the big monsters smash into each other.
Seriously, the fights half the time don't make sense, but they're all fantastic.
So you gotta give it props for that.
Really well done. They choreographed it well. It was clearly animated. Everybody looked awesome. The fights were really good.
It was a lot of fun in the ways you expect something like this to be. It's a very good update of the kind of Showa-era kaiju film that I'm such a big fan of.
I should be able to pick up, this is like a glorified Sci-Fi Channel original, like, monster fighting monster thing, right? This is like, Mega Shark versus Crocosaurus kind of situation. I shouldn't have had to read all of the backstory or watch 6 movies to understand what's going on. I should be able to pick this up and just kind of roll with it and figure it out. But I feel like there's a lot of stuff happening here that I am not picking up on.
I haven't yet seen it in theaters. I'm hoping to see it in IMAX at some point, but I'm not yet vaccinated yet, so it doesn't seem to be worth the risk.
I've watched it 4 times now, twice in the drive-in and twice on HBO Max, and I am just thrilled with it every time.
I do plan on seeing it on IMAX a few weeks after my second vaccination shot, if possible.
I've been a Godzilla fan since probably first grade. I want to say my first film was the original King Kong vs. Godzilla, but it could have also been Ghidorah the three-headed monster. Being 8 or 9 years old, I was hooked on Godzilla.
From beginning to end, this whole thing is just so amazing to look at. Now, I really enjoyed King of the Monsters, but one of my issues with it is all the shaky cam throughout. Blurry night shots and debris. It makes it kind of a challenge to follow the monster action. This movie, like Skull Island, shows its monster battles mostly in the daylight, and it looks awesome. I absolutely love the use of neon lights and color throughout this movie. It just looks so good.
I guess what I can give context for is some of the weirder references that I don't know if anyone else will have picked up on.
Also, like I've said on the previous episodes, I think the Legendary movies have really done an amazing job laying the groundwork for this fight. Because Godzilla 2014 introduced us to both Godzilla and the concept of giant monsters in the real world, with hints at a larger ecosystem of kaiju that have existed in secret for centuries. Then Skull Island deepened that mythology and really built up Kong as a character. King of the Monsters came around and expanded the world, and we really got to see Godzilla's power on full display. Not to mention all the little Easter eggs about these two finally facing off. So, GVK didn't really have to do much in the way of build-up, they just had to deliver. And that's exactly what they did.
Plot of this flick is pretty straightforward, and honestly I do appreciate that. No need to complicate a movie that explicitly states that a fight is going down in the title.
We start 5 years after Godzilla has defeated King Ghidorah.
Starting off real strong with Bobby Vinton's 1957 single, Over the Mountain, Across the Sea.
We begin with an awesome Somewhere on Skull Island.
The movie opens up somewhere on Skull Island.
So the movie opens on Skull Island, where we see Kong just like sleeping. It's kind of cool.
Kong yawning and stretching, taking a shower under a waterfall.
We get a great montage of King Kong just chilling, taking a shower, hanging out.
See him kind of like wake up and go through his morning routine or whatever.
My wife was very impressed with how ripped King Kong is in this movie.
It does start questionably with a joke, and the joke is just that King Kong scratches his butt.
This intro is really baller. I do kind of like Kong scratching his butt to give him like a tiny bit of additional humanity.
And that's a little weird.
Everything seems normal.
Kong is visited by Jaya. I think that's her name. I'm probably mispronouncing that.
My favorite human character is definitely Gia. The young actress who portrays her is so emotionally expressive that it's often heartbreaking to watch her interactions with Kong.
She is the last Iwi native and is the adopted daughter of the Kong expert Eileen Andrews.
The way they introduce Jai as being deaf, they introduce her and then her being deaf, is amazing.
And he comes across this little girl who's got a Kong stuffed animal that she's made, it looks like.
The actress playing Gia was very good. Her name is Kaylee Hottle, from what I'm seeing here. And she's actually deaf. And she's very good in this movie, and she does a great job.
And it's made very clear very quickly that she's deaf.
There's this deaf girl. She's one of the last surviving Iwi natives from Skull Island, apparently. And she has a connection with Kong.
Jaya is also deaf, but can communicate with Kong through sign language.
And Kong seems to recognize her. He's holding a big log when he sees her, and he's like, after he looks at her for a bit, he turns around and whips this thing off into the sky, and you're like, what?
So King Kong throws a tree through the sky, and it ruptures the ceiling. We find we're in like a Hunger Games style dome.
And then, of course, this friggin' like tree toss into the fake sky is awesome.
And then it's revealed that Kong is being held in a containment dome on Skull Island.
And it hits like an unseen barrier, like a hologram generator, at which point the camera pans out and we see that they are on Skull Island.
It's a Kong zoo.
It is the King Kong Preserve on Skull Island.
And then it's revealed that for some reason, Monarch has built a holodeck dome on Skull Island.
That Monarch has built a giant like observation dome, like a habitat where they are keeping him.
And Kong's figuring out that he can break out of it.
Kong is being monitored by Monarch, which looks like they're in a giant dome.
Kong is contained on Skull Island for what I would assume is his protection, although I do kind of feel the reasoning for that is a bit muddled, considering that Godzilla and Kong have existed simultaneously for decades, and never once did Godzilla seek him out.
Okay. I don't know why they built a holographic dome on top of Skull Island. I don't know how King Kong, who we saw in the movie Kong Skull Island, explores Skull Island pretty thoroughly, didn't notice that he was in a holographic dome quicker than this. I also don't know how they built a holographic dome around King Kong without him noticing.
Poor monkey wants out.
And the thing that bothers me about that is that there didn't need to be a holographic dome around Skull Island. I think the idea was that the holographic dome was somehow keeping Godzilla from, knowing that Kong existed.
So why didn't he come after him before, and why would they need to protect him now?
But that didn't matter, because Godzilla didn't come look for Kong until Kong left Skull Island. So they could have just said that Skull Island was keeping Godzilla from knowing that Kong... I don't know. The holographic dome just...
All that we're told is it's due to an ancient rivalry, which sounds cool, but never explained.
It seemed like a dumb, unnecessary, extra layer of mystery and intrigue, and that's something that this movie suffers from a lot.
My least favorite human character? Is it unfair to say everyone except for Gia? They're all pretty much written as plot devices to ensure that Kong gets from one action set piece to the next, and honestly, I'm fine with that.
We come to find out the reason that they're keeping him there is to avoid a fight with Godzilla. That there can only be one Alpha Titan, and that the moment Kong leaves the Monarch Station, Godzilla's going to come right for him. And they're trying to avoid that. They want to save Kong from the fight, and they just want to save humanity from the fight.
Eileen has a conversation with one of her co-workers about how he's outgrowing the dome, and they should think about moving him, but also acknowledging that if they do move him, Godzilla will come because there can't be two Alpha Titans.
Yeah, there's a telling line. There can't be two Alpha Titans, or something to that effect. So we know right away, as far as this movie's concerned, these two are pretty evenly matched.
And one of the problems that people had when this movie was going to come out is that even if you look at the Skull Island version of King Kong, which is a very, very large version of it, remember the original, climbed the Empire State Building, whereas Godzilla knocks it down with his tail. The scale difference between King Kong and Godzilla is pretty drastic. Forget about the nuclear fire and all that stuff. But they do make a little line in here about how he's grown a lot in captivity, and it's been many years since he was captured. So that's kind of how they're going to explain resizing King Kong to be the size of Godzilla now.
Why did they build a holographic dome? How did they build a holographic dome? When did they build a holographic dome? I have so many questions about the holographic dome, and I understand that it doesn't really matter, but I want to know about the holographic dome.
So it's not really explained, at all in this movie, but what I think is going on here is that since Skull Island, the 70s, the storm that originally protected Skull Island has now kind of encapsulated it, and that combined with Monarch's knowledge of Godzilla's existence and their rivalry or whatever is why they have him in here, because they never really say what is going on in its entirety. They put a lot of detail into the versus Godzilla thing, but there is this brief mention of an offhanded comment where she's like, oh yeah, well, ever since the storm hit or something like that. So this has been a years going thing.
We get the opening credits, which are kind of a clever recap of the last few movies, and we get this funny nod to a bracket setup, which made me laugh because #Battle of the Big Things. It is a little weird though that in this intro it looks like they changed the location of Skull Island to somewhere beneath Hawaii. That's an odd choice considering it was previously established as the South China Seas, but whatever.
We then cut to Pensacola, Florida, which, alright, cool.
Next we meet Bernie Hayes. He's a employee at Apex Cybernetics, and he's a host of a Titan Conspiracy Theory podcast.
We cut to a heroic podcaster who is going to save the world.
Enter Bernie Hayes, a conspiracy theorist podcast who annoyed me the moment he walked on screen and didn't stop annoying me for the rest of the movie.
I love that a podcast is a plot point in this movie.
Okay, there are some terrible things about this movie. Let's start with the whole podcast subplot.
We see in the parking lot, there's a guy who's working there who's got a podcast, which I got a kick out of.
Everyone's just terrific in this. Brian Tyree Henry, I think, was probably everyone's favorite character just because we're all podcasters.
The heroic podcaster is investigating Apex for doing some shady stuff. There's some conspiracy stuff going on here, and I think we're going to find out that humans were the real monsters the whole time. Have we covered this theme yet in the series?
Bernie is undercover, suggesting that there is sinister activities going on within Apex.
This guy clearly should have no idea what's going on. He's supposed to be a joke. But for some reason, they team him up with 11, and it turns out that he's right about everything. He's like the only person who understands what's going on in the world of Godzilla vs. Kong. And that's just weird. Don't make your conspiracy theorists right. Come on now.
We're introduced to Apex, and its CEO, Walter Simmons, played by Damian Bashir, based in Pensacola, Florida.
Apex Cybernetics.
Their tagline is, "We're not going anywhere, and neither are you."
And you know right away that they're going to be the bad guys.
And I'm getting some real Cyberdyne vibes here.
I mean, it just immediately.
We cut to Apex, and the second they say cybernetics, I yell the word Mecha Godzilla out loud.
So Bernie, the podcaster, is awesome.
And he's talking about how he's been undercover there or infiltrating them for quite a while, and today's the day he's going to, he's going to find some stuff out. As he's kind of sneaking around or not sneaking around, he gets into a place he's not supposed to be, and he kind of annoys the guy who's on duty there into going to the bathroom just to get away from him.
He hacks into the Apex database
and is able to hop into their system and see some things he's not supposed to see about resources being shipped to Hong Kong and all kinds of weird stuff. Before he can get too far into it, though, an alarm goes off.
And out of nowhere, Godzilla attacks Pensacola.
I really like Godzilla's intro, and I'm not gonna lie, I was like absolutely gonna lose my shit if he was, Mecha Godzilla with flesh on him. But it wasn't. Whatever. It was still really good. The glowing spike very up close is telling later in the movie.
And holy shit, Godzilla is coming for Pensacola, Florida.
Seemingly unprovoked.
Godzilla's rampaging, and we don't know why, although it's fairly obvious when you see that he's targeting a specific facility.
Before he can get to the bottom of it, Godzilla appears and attacks the facility.
Also, his arms. Is it just me? Am I the only one who, really appreciated his arms in this movie? They felt a lot more useful, and they looked more natural-ish.
It's really weird, but I dug it.
Deducing that Apex is up to no good? It's not hard.
So he's able to use the panic caused by Godzilla's arrival to sneak into more restricted areas.
During the attack, Bernie stumbles upon a massive device.
Is that a robot eye? That's a large eye.
It could be a eye to a giant robot. Could it be a weapon?
And Bernie finds a giant red glowy robotic sphere.
There's some easy low-hanging fruit about how it could be another part of anatomy, but we'll just say that it's probably Mecha Godzilla's belly button.
They are going to do Mecha Godzilla. I can feel it. I know it. This is going to be awesome. I freaking love Mecha Godzilla.
Cut to CNN. Godzilla no longer Titan's savior. Troy was right. Troy was right all along.
I guess it's just supposed to show that this is national news. Of course, why wouldn't it be?
I like that they kind of call out Godzilla 2014 for that headline at the ending, because, Godzilla's not the hero. He just happened to destroy a worse monster.
Then we jump over to Madison Russell from King of the Monsters.
Millie Bobby Brown is a fan of Bernie's Godzilla podcast.
She is a fan of Bernie's podcast.
I love the Illuminati symbol with the Zilla eye in it. It's pretty clever.
So then we cut to, we're catching up with 11, who's in high school now, supposedly. It looks like, I don't know.
I'm still only going to ever see her as 13, and it's weird with her having, long hair and being happy in college, or whatever, high school. I don't know what's going on here.
They're watching CNN in the class, and CNN is saying Godzilla is no longer a savior after the attack in Pensacola leaves 8 dead.
The return of Madison Russell and her father Mark was nice, but they didn't really feel necessary. Their presence in the film changed nothing.
Appears to be the only person in the world who remembers that Godzilla has saved the world a couple times, and that there must be some other reason to why he is attacking Apex facilities.
But anyway, we see as she's walking home, find out she's skipping, looks like she's listening to the Titan podcast that the dude was recording earlier, and she's like on this dude's side. She believes that, as he theorizes, that there's never been an instance that we know of where Godzilla attacked unprovoked, and that something had to have been going on at Apex for him to do that. Like, he wouldn't just do that, you know?
Madison claiming that she knows that Godzilla would never act this way could be anyone at Monarch, even Mark, despite his previous feelings towards him.
Yeah, so she's all aboard this theory, and she calls her dad and tries to explain to him that this is, they're looking at this all wrong. And of course he blows her off because he hasn't learned anything and he's an idiot. He still sucks.
So Billy Bobby Brown meets up with her Australian friend Josh, aka Tapwater, before tracking down the Kaiju podcaster Bernie.
And everything she and her friends do throughout the movie is nothing more than exposition for us as an audience. They do nothing to move the plot forward in any way whatsoever.
So, can we get Bernie on this podcast? I think he'd be great.
That said, Brian Tyree Henry and Julian Dennison are both entertaining as hell, as always.
Old Triple B and the Angry Kiwi literally hop in the mystery machine.
So Madison enlists her friend Josh, who we've never seen before, but stole his brother's van to figure out what has been provoking Godzilla, and their best idea is to go find Bernie, who hosts the podcast, because he seems to have insider information. Plus, podcasts are the best places to go for everything you need to know about Kaiju.
Seriously? You waste Millie Bobby Brown in a weird conspiracy theorist role? That whole part of the movie was worthless, and they should feel bad.
I know this is probably cold-hearted, but with as big of a conspiracy theorist as Bernie is, I half wonder if his wife did not die by eating Tide Pods. Serious thought.
Gotta love the Tide Pod joke.
I keep saying it. I was really happy with this movie. It was nice to see Ronnie Chang. Ronnie Chang is hilarious. Find his stand-up. His stand-up is so good. Asian Comedian Destroys America. It's on Netflix. It's wonderful. Look it up.
I thought that the human characters in this one were better. The kid from Deadpool 2, the New Zealand kid. Sometimes those characters felt like they were out of a Michael Bay Transformers movie, but they never got bad enough where or they didn't have enough screen time at least, where it felt like, oh my god,
There are a few too many human characters for how one-dimensional they all are, but the story does move along at a brisk pace as a result.
It wasn't always great, but they had some nice moments of levity, and they seemed likable enough, and yeah, so no problems really with the human characters. Thankfully, we didn't get of Madison's dad.
Billy Bobby Brown, Bernie the podcaster, and Tapwater have an exposition scene in an empty neon Chinese restaurant, where they come up with a plan to break into Apex and figure out what they're hiding.
All the actors did a great job.
So we then continue to introduce our characters and reintroduce our characters. We cut to Denham University in Philadelphia, where the CEO of Apex kind of crashes Dr. Len, who's played by Skarsgård, Randall Flagg.
Okay. So Apex is doing something, and therefore Godzilla shows up and rampages and destroys the facility, and as a result, the world has decided that we need to kill Godzilla? Or maybe just Apex has decided that we need to kill Godzilla?
We then jump to an apartment building where the Apex CEO, Walter Simmons, is visiting Nathan Lind.
I believe it's Dr. Lin. Forgive me if that's wrong. But the CEO of Apex busts into him, is in his place.
We cut to Denham University. Is this a reference to Carl Denham?
Lots of little references. Denham University is the university that Alexander Skarsgård's character works at.
Wait, is Skarsgård the bad guy here?
Now, for me, the biggest misstep here would be the character of Nathan Lind, who was played by Alexander Skarsgård. While I have no issue with him or his character, the character that should have been here is Houston Brooks from Kong Skull Island. He was the man behind the Hollow Earth theory, and worked for Monarch and was last seen in Godzilla King of the Monsters, so why not have him appear here and finally see what he had theorized for decades? This was a huge missed opportunity that could really tie these films together in a much more cohesive manner.
Nathan apparently is a Hollow Earth theorist, and Walter needs him to search for a power source within the Hollow Earth. They believe that is the home world of all the Titans.
We get some more back and forth about crazy Hollow Earth theories.
Is Hollow Earth a thing? Is this a thing that people believe?
That will become important later.
This is like some like weird QAnon like conspiracy theory stuff happening here.
Nathan does not want to go back. His brother had died on an expedition to the Hollow Earth, and apparently there is a very strong reverse gravitational effect that crushed and killed the entire party once they tried to cross over into the Hollow Earth.
And they show Dr. Lin that the Hollow Earth theory is in fact correct, and that there is a fully sustainable, livable ecosystem in the middle of the Earth. But it's got super crazy gravity flips, because on one side of it, you're essentially on one half of the Earth, and on the other side of it, you're on the other. I don't know why the gravity would flip, but whatever.
And Nathan says it's impossible. There's no way we can make the trip without being killed.
I thought Dr. Lin, as played by Alexander Skarsgård, kind of felt like MacGruber, especially because he basically wore the same outfit the entire time.
Still, it would have been nice to see some actual, character in the characters beyond, I have a dead relative.
One of my few complaints about this movie is that it does feel like there's a lot of deleted scenes from the human characters. Apparently Zhang Zi and a few other actors were cut from the final movie. But I have to admit, the pacing in this one is perfect.
Like, why is Lance Reddick, who's an awesome character actor, even there if he only delivers one dry line of dialogue?
Now, some of my issues with this film stem with there being little to no follow-through with the entirety of the MonsterVerse franchise. There have been very few characters that have overlapped in these films, and in my opinion, only one felt like they were developed beyond one movie. That character being Dr. Serizawa.
We meet Serizawa Jr.
I do like that in this scene we're introduced to the new Dr. Serizawa.
And I may be mistaken on this, but I thought they said Dr. Serizawa at one point, so I don't know if he's supposed to be like a relative or the son of the other Dr. Serizawa, or if I just misheard that, but he's like the chief technical officer for Apex.
However, there was a character in this film named Serizawa who seemingly had an initial interest in Gojira at the beginning of the film, but then he was nothing more than a lackey for Apex?
Ren Serizawa was an interesting character.
Or, as I like to call him, Dr. Sexyzawa.
I'm not sure how I like the way he was handled in this movie, but he does a good job being a mysterious mad scientist, I guess.
Walter reveals that Apex has been working on and developed Hollow Earth aerial vehicles, or HEAVs.
But anyway, their CEO goes and hires some dude who has a way to get to Hollow Earth, to take them to Hollow Earth, because there's magical super energy in Hollow Earth.
These are special crafts that are able to withstand extreme pressures and gravity field changes, so Nathan eventually agrees to lead the team down to the Hollow Earth.
Also, your brother died going to Middle Earth over there, and you're going to bring along a little girl and her mom just because the shuttlecraft may work?
So they've got to get this team in there to harness the energy, right? He tells them, if we can harness the energy in this place, we can create a weapon that will rival Godzilla. And finally, give humanity a shot at, reclaiming the world from Titans kind of thing.
And also, they need King Kong to go with them, for reasons.
So the basic plot is, use Big Monkey as tour guide to the Hollow Earth through Antarctica to find a mysterious power source.
They are aware that there are different tunnels and ways to access Hollow Earth. The idea is they will need a Titan to lead them.
For example, the main bad guy, played by Damian Bashir, is very reminiscent of Doctor Who from 1967's King Kong Escapes, where there's a lot going on, but part of it is that Doctor Who is trying to dig Element X out of Antarctica, and he kidnaps King Kong to do it. So that was, whatever the element or fuel source they're looking for in this movie, that was very reminiscent of that.
And Monarch has been trying to protect Kong from Godzilla because they believe that Godzilla will seek him out. And they're right.
They asked Dr. Lin to lead the mission to the Hollow Earth. And he says he has a theory that a Titan could lead them there, like a homing pigeon.
Nathan has a former connection with Eileen, who is head of the Kong project, meets with her and convinces her to let Kong guide them down to Hollow Earth through an outpost that's all the way down in Antarctica.
Okay, so there's a hole in Antarctica that's going to lead and bring us to a journey to the center of the Earth kind of story here. So we're going to incorporate it's Godzilla versus King Kong versus Jules Verne now.
But then Kong is needed to lead a team to the Hollow Earth because it could reveal a new power source for Apex.
We're going to go to Journey to the Center of the Earth, Land of the Lost. There's going to be some Edgar Rice Burroughs stuff maybe happening down there.
See? Not hard to deduce, is it?
This could be interesting, I hope.
So they need a Titan, which we cut to the Monarch station on Skull Island, where he confronts the Doctor and he says, "Look, we need Kong. Kong will protect us. Kong will get us there. You're trying to find a better situation for him where he's not prisoner in this dome. Like he could find a new home there." And he's trying to manipulate a little bit, but he's for all he knows, he's being honest.
Problem here is to get from Skull Island all the way to Antarctica, you have a lot of ocean to cover, and you have Godzilla who is roaming the Earth, but will also seek out Kong to prove that Godzilla is the Alpha Titan.
Kong bows to no one.
Why is why is Godzilla trying to kill King Kong? Because he's the king of the monsters and he has to kill all the other monsters to prove that he's the king? That's the motivation, I guess. Why do any humans matter in this story? I get that the entire history of the Godzilla and King Kong, the Godzilla movies especially, are that you need humans because you don't have the budget to just show the monster all the time. And that's kind of been a staple here. The humans don't have anything to do, whatever. But it's 2021 and I expect better at this point from a movie, right?
Yeah, so he theorizes that a Titan can get them there like a homing pigeon, that all the Titans come from Hollow Earth, and that if they use one of them, in this case Kong, as a guide, that they'll be able to get to where they need to go.
Obviously, for reasons previously stated, getting Kong to the entrance will be problematic.
So they get King Kong on a boat so they can take him to Antarctica so they can go through the Hollow Earth. Even though it was clearly stated in the movie Kong Skull Island that Skull Island is an open doorway to the Hollow Earth. That's where the skull lizard things come from, so they should have just been able to do it from Skull Island. But I guess we got to get a scene where Godzilla and King Kong fight on a boat, so they load King Kong on a boat.
So of course, as soon as they say, "Well, we'll go to places Godzilla isn't, and then we'll Kong will go with us." You just know Godzilla, that's where they're going to have their big first confrontation.
Nathan, Eileen, Jaya, and an Apex team somehow get Kong aboard a large modified barge.
So you see Kong is chained up on an aircraft carrier.
And all the stuff with him on the boat's pretty cool.
And I don't know how they keep transporting this dude around. He's so massive. The amount of drugs needed to knock him unconscious long enough and deeply enough where you could attach a collar and cuffs that are large enough and strong enough to hold him, and then transport him, and then chain him in this contraption and get out to sea before he can wake up. That's crazy, but whatever. The people, Monarch and the Apex apparently have unlimited budgets, so we'll just roll with it.
It's a pretty cool shot of King Kong. He's got a full U.S. carrier fleet escorting him. So you got some destroyers, some cruisers, an aircraft carrier in there. I think that's a really cool touch.
I like how kind of quickly the boat scene happens. It's just more of establishing people and less so establishing the transport factor.
I love the sign language stuff here.
The little girl who speaks to him in sign language, yeah, that's pretty good. I like that.
I guess the human characters I do enjoy would be Dr. Andrews and Jaya.
We've got the sign language girl is cool. She can communicate with the monkey. That's cool, but I don't understand the point of her being in the story.
Since they are the connection to Kong, they feel necessary, and I like that they're kind of protective of him.
At one point, while on the boat, Kong starts having, in the middle of the night, he starts freaking out. He just doesn't want to be chained up anymore. He's trying to, kind of spaz out a little bit.
Kong starts having a tantrum on the boat, and she's the only one that can calm him down in the rain.
And it does provide us with kind of a repeat scene. It's the same as old Billy Bobby Brown and Mothra, but this time with King Kong and Gia.
And everyone's kind of decided, what do we do? What do we do? And the little girl just runs out onto the deck in the rain and starts using sign language to Kong. And the other doctor comes out like, what are you doing? Like, you can't kill, it's so dangerous out here. You can't just run out here. And then she sees that Kong is signing back to the little girl.
And the reveal that Kong knows American Sign Language is amazing.
Plus, having Kong be able to sign was a nice addition that felt like proper growth for the character and actually added an extra layer and element to the character so that now we can understand what he's thinking and feeling without actually having to talk.
So we realize that Kong not only understands sign language, but he's like starting to learn some of it himself, or has learned some of it himself. I thought that was a really nice touch. It was really cool.
I love this. It really shows off just how smart Kong is. And having that human connection really grounds it.
And then, like, how it's used is so marvelous. Instead of being, BS or, like, comedic, they use this to establish Kong's intelligence.
I love that Kong really is the central character in this movie.
The best part of this movie is, of course, the battles.
Okay, so this is where the movie's first big strength is to me, is the fighting in this movie is fantastic.
And of course, when he clashes with Godzilla, we get some real fights that don't feel cheap or rushed.
They did a great job with the choreography. The fights are brutal, and they're always I never had a problem following what was going on, even better than King of All Monsters or King of the Monsters.
The Iwi girl senses Kong is agitated because he senses Godzilla approaching.
And then Godzilla shows up and ruins the party.
So we get the big boat battle. Godzilla has shown up and he's going to fight King Kong on an aircraft carrier. This sounds awesome.
Godzilla is able to find out where they are and attacks the convoy.
Godzilla is just a wrecking ball in this one. He's pissed.
So yeah, we get our first fight there, and it's actually really cool. It starts with Kong still chained up, and Godzilla comes flying in on under the sea, cutting ships in half. And
I just love that shot of Godzilla's tail smashing through jets and capsizing battleships with ease.
The fight with the fleet, I want it to have a little bit more weight. Say what you want about the rubber suit guys beating each other up and throwing themselves into buildings and stuff, and none of that stuff had weight to it either, but there's something about the way that this is filmed and the CG of Godzilla's destroying an entire aircraft carrier fleet here. He just whaps his tail and a destroyer explodes.
One of the ships gets its anchor caught on Godzilla's spike and just gets dragged under. It's pretty horrifying.
And there's a fight scene between Godzilla and King Kong on boats.
Godzilla vs. Kong, round 1, fight.
The first battle of the aircraft carrier was damn, this is a fun movie.
He and Kong have a decent fight.
This whole fight scene is a dream come true.
And as I kind of mentioned before, Kong is a little bit more relatable because of his emotions. You can kind of understand and see what he's thinking and feeling.
I mean, obviously Kong is the good guy to a point, but he's not for the humans.
Godzilla flips the boat as Kong's chained to it. That was a pretty intense scene, both for Kong and the human.
So I kept most complaints about this film down to a minimum because it's just dumb fun and it's really good at it. I don't like that Maya shows concern for Gia. After they get let out of the room, the ship flips over and then flips back and the room was kind of flooded momentarily. When Gia comes out, Maya shows that she cares, and this is not in her character anywhere else in the script. She never goes from badass to caring. It's just badass the whole way through, except for this one moment.
Almost drowns Kong,
and then they use it to just throw your brain through a loop when Kong's under the water, tugging on a chain, trying to get loose.
Skarsgård really saves the day here by releasing Kong, and it was a cool way to show that Kong cares about the people because he saves the crew by flipping the boat back over.
He jumped around the ships, crushing stuff left and right.
So someone brought it up, and on my rewatch of this movie, the battleship they fight on is shown to be approximately the same size as the transport ship when they're doing the establishing grouping ship shot. But then when Kong reaches it, it is appropriately sized and much, much larger. It is actual, aircraft carrier sized.
And I actually think the carrier can hold both Titans at the same time. They hold very heavy jets, not other carriers in weight.
I do have questions in this fight about the boats and how they're able to hold up two kaijus jumping around on him.
We get Kong and Zilla tussling underwater. Kong headbutts Godzilla. Kong jumps over to an aircraft carrier and uses one of the jets as a throwing dart.
There's that cool shot of the airplane taking off while the carrier is getting like knocked down behind him. But I feel like none of this is, maybe I'm watching because I'm watching on a laptop and it's designed to be watched on like an IMAX. I don't feel like any of this really has a lot of weight.
Kong lands a punch to Godzilla's face, and he just slaps him back.
It seems like all these boats should have sunk, but that's fine.
It's also a really clever location for a face-off between the two. It makes sense narratively, but also Godzilla definitely has the advantage underwater.
When Godzilla attacked at the sea, I knew Kong was in trouble from the start. This is Godzilla's domain.
There's some nice back and forth there, but at the end of the day, it's Godzilla's fight. He really kicks all kinds of ass.
This wasn't a fight he could easily come out on top of.
Kong being out of his element, being in water, actually does a pretty good job of fighting off Godzilla.
I love Kong's reaction to Godzilla unleashing his fire breath. He's like, oh shit.
And Kong almost drowns a couple of times.
One thing that this movie has going for it is they show the monsters all the time, right? There's a thing when you write for Sci-Fi Channel original movies, like those kind of, Sharknado kind of deals. There's a thing where if you're going to write this, you are required as part of the contract with Sci-Fi to show the monster every 12 minutes, because that's how often the commercial breaks are. And if somebody's just kind of flipping through the channels and they cut to it, they want to see them. They want the viewer to see the monster before it cuts to commercial, so that they'll stick with the story. That is great because the monsters are cool looking and stuff, and they show the monsters all the time in this. But the problem is, it really hurts the mysteriousness and the scariness and the intensity and the power of these creatures, right? Like, you don't see the alien that much in Alien. You don't see Jaws that much in Jaws, right? Or the Bruce the Shark or whatever. There's something to be said for like maintaining a little bit of mystery to it. And I feel like just showing these guys in broad daylight punching each other, we've got a lot of screen time from both of these monsters so far, and I feel like it's like not a great thing.
He's able to fight long enough to let the guys on the ship kind of regroup a little bit, and Godzilla then wraps him up in his tail and starts swimming down under, like, as deep as he can, so Kong's he's gonna drown him. And the guys on the ships drop like a ton of depth charges to disorient and distract Godzilla, which somehow doesn't do the same to Kong, but whatever.
And then at the end of it, Godzilla murders King Kong by drowning him under the water, except for that Godzilla, who's been completely impervious to every munition and weapon that humanity has thrown at him, gets beat by a concussive bomb and lets King Kong go, and he floats back to the surface, and he's fine now.
It just seems like a lot of explosions, a lot of yelling, and I just like, I don't know, I want this to be better because it sounds in my head like it would be better.
The military stands down so Godzilla doesn't see them as a threat. Godzilla leaves Kong with a warning.
Kong loses round 1.
Godzilla wins 1-0.
And Godzilla retreats because they shut off all the engines to the boats and power down. If Godzilla could find Kong based upon Kong being outside the dome of Skull Island, it doesn't really make much sense that he would then leave Kong alone just because the convoy powered down their boats.
And because it's water-based, Godzilla comes up pretty resolutely on top.
So Kong gets away this time.
Meanwhile, in Antarctica,
the next step is to fly Kong via many helicopters in a giant net to Antarctica.
I really liked the various Easter eggs and references to older movies scattered throughout the film. Whether it's an unconscious Kong being lifted in the air, this time by helicopters instead of balloons, or the plot sharing some unexpected resemblances to that of King Kong Returns.
Oh my god, they did it! They actually did it.
Of course, in the original King Kong vs. Godzilla, pretty much everyone talked about King Kong being carried around by balloons.
It does show that the director and screenwriters did their homework.
They realize they can't take Kong on water anymore, so they're gonna fly him, but they don't use balloons, they just use a net on helicopters.
But is a nice little callback again to the original King Kong vs. Godzilla, where they did transport Kong at one point by giant helium balloons.
And then almost immediately following the classic KVG boat transport scene, we get the plane transport scene, the helicopter transport scene, and I like it. It's cool, and it's very short, and I just love how super quick this is. Just, like, reference it, let's move on.
And there's a visual reference to that with the giant net they bring him to Antarctica and the Hollow Earth in.
It's the balloon scene. It's except with helicopters, but hey, it's totally the balloon scene from the OG King Kong vs. Godzilla.
I love the callback to the original Kong vs. Zilla and that they airlifted him, but this time wasn't a battle.
You cowards! You could have done the balloons.
We go to Antarctica, where there's the entrance to the center of the Earth.
In Antarctica, we get to the Hollow Earth entrance.
When they get there, I'm not sure why they needed a Titan, because it's pretty clearly like just zip through this big-ass glowing hole in the middle of the Earth, but okay.
Skarsgård tells Rebecca Hall to tell the girl to convince Kong that his family is in the tunnel.
And Jaya is able to convince Kong to enter the tunnel by telling him that he may have family down in the Hollow Earth.
And Kong books it, and we follow him down into the Hollow Earth portal.
Kong takes off, entering the tunnel. The teams follow in the heaves.
There's these cool vehicles that fly.
One of the great things about these hover vehicles is that it gives us a first-person POV perspective through the lens of the human characters, where it really feels like a ride as the vehicles are swerving in and out of the monster action.
Because Hollow Earth has something weird with reverse gravity, and so you have to have a cool spaceship to get there, I guess.
They've got these stupid aircraft that are flying around in reverse gravity. I don't understand the reverse gravity thing because nobody has taken 2 seconds to explain what the hell is happening here. Don't give a shit about that either.
These vehicles look cool, but I don't understand what they're for. Godzilla vs. Kong. This looks cool, but I don't understand what it's for. That's my tagline for the whole movie.
And we begin the descent down to Hollow Earth, which is very good that Apex built this massive facility that Kong could swing from the rafters all the way to the entrance. That was incredible and impeccable foresight on their part.
But ultimately they succeed, and Kong gets to explore the Hollow Earth before his big showdown with Godzilla. Simple enough.
FYI, there is so much magic technology in this movie. World hunger should be freaking cured.
To digress for a moment, one complaint I've heard about this film is its leaps in technology and logic. How we go from the grounded element of the 2014 film to the portal jumping of this film. I want to point out once again that this is not unheard of in a Godzilla film. By the 5th entry in the Showa era, they were dealing with aliens and crossing film franchises. Not unheard of. Be like Elsa and let it go.
Jump back to Madison and Josh, who have been looking for Bernie, the host of the Titan Conspiracy podcast. They eventually find him because he likes to bathe in bleach.
Wait, he showers in bleach?
Interesting approach.
WTF?
They're uncovering some conspiracy somewhere else. I don't really care about that.
All three sneak back into the wrecked Apex facility.
All right, Mad Hatter, down the rabbit hole. The three amigos make their way into the subterranean facility.
Sublevel 33, that's the year King Kong originally came out.
How deep does this thing go? Hell, it goes to hell.
Where they then get locked into an underground monorail transport that is containing baby skull crawlers.
They find the skull crawler eggs being harvested.
The goofiest moment is getting stuck in the 6-hour underground train ride. That would be exhausting. And then they would be hungry, tired, and someone definitely pooped in the corner.
They get stuck on an underground hover transport to... somewhere?
Seriously, there's a Hyperloop from Pensacola, Florida to Hong Kong. No stops, no other stations. No, all that technology and only has one use.
They go from Florida, transported all the way to Hong Kong with this underground monorail.
Wait, they would have to go through the Gulf of Mexico, through the entire Pacific Ocean. Wouldn't you think that Zilla would know that shit was there? Like, just in the middle of the ocean? Did they put it all the way to the bottom of the floor, like through the Mariana Trench or something? Because, I mean, he has a hunting pattern that they can track. He can sense Kong just sitting in the boat in the middle of the ocean. He didn't detect the 400 metric tons of skull crawlers moving every other day? Don't tell me it's the first time they've moved those things there.
And you know what? Let's talk about the monsters, because that's why we all came here in the first place. First, we get to see a skull crawler again, which excited me so much.
Do you think they make the skull crawlers, skull cleavers, whatever they're called, do you think they make them look like the Cloverfield monster on purpose? Do you think that's like a little FU to J.J. Abrams?
Being used as a tool for an Apex training exercise was a very clever way to use them.
Did J.J. Abrams do Cloverfield? I don't even know. I don't even know my name anymore. This movie's making me insane.
This whole scene with the, battleground floor observation deck thing is just hilarious. Like, if you hadn't caught on at any other point in time, you know, that this movie was just dumb, like right now, where there's just this perfectly convenient in-ground observation area for our characters to, like, jump into. It's so good. It's just so dumb. And then somehow that same in-ground observation deck is connected to the computer area that's, like, I don't know, probably like a quarter of a mile, half mile away from where they are, like with all the stuff that they have to go through horizontally and vertically.
Once they arrive in Hong Kong, they stumble into a giant testing chamber for Mecha Godzilla.
Then we get the Mecha Godzilla reveal.
Oh shit, it's Mecha Godzilla! Oh my god, this is so freaking cool.
So the initial steamy Mecha G reveal is really cool.
Mecha Godzilla comes up out of the floor, begins to power up right when a adult Skullcrawler is being released.
Then what should have been the biggest surprise, but wasn't because we all literally knew it was coming, Mecha Godzilla.
You know, his presence in the movie had kind of sort of been spoiled for me by marketing stuff a while back, but you never know. Sometimes that stuff doesn't make it into the movie or just was a red herring or whatever, but he looks cool.
I also eventually had to like pause the movie to like do a 15-minute explanation to my wife on what Mecha Godzilla is and why he is cool, complete with Google image search, visual aids.
It's probably hella impractical that it could ever be curled up like that, but that is still really cool.
I really like this design. It feels like an evolution of modern robotics on a gigantic scale, and the way it moves feels convincing.
And he looks pretty awesome.
The design is good, although I would say that the take they did in Ready Player One, I think I like a little bit more if we're comparing Americanized versions. But then if we go into the Japanese, there's no contest. I like those more. But in regards to Americanized, I kind of like what they did in Ready Player One more.
He could have looked really goofy. They did a really cool job. He's Godzilla-esque, but he's different enough where he kind of just looks like a Godzilla skeleton almost. It's pretty awesome.
Mecha Godzilla shooting lasers out of his eyes has been like my message board icon for probably 20 years now. So I like him. I think he's awesome, and I'm really excited to see what they do with him here.
The Skullcrawler chases Josh, Bernie, and Madison.
I get the design here, though. It works.
It also has a lot of clever capabilities that would only make sense for a cybernetic weapon, as opposed to like a biological one.
Mecha Godzilla attacks the Skullcrawler, picks it up, and is able to cut it in half with its beam attack.
And they still made him a force to be reckoned with, just as it was in the Japanese iterations.
Did you see they release a Skullcrawler into the room with him, and he snatches it by the arms and pulls its arms tight, and then uses a red laser breath to like cut this freaking thing in half. Is really gross.
But then powers down.
We then learn that they have a problem keeping him charged. Like it's such a huge amount of power needed, which is why we find out they sent Dr. Lin and his team to Hollow Earth, because there's an energy source there, like I mentioned, that they can use to create their weapon. And of course, this is their weapon. They want to power Mecha Godzilla with this energy source from the Hollow Earth and use him to kill all the Titans.
It runs out of power whenever it uses its main weapon, which feels like a callback to 2002's Godzilla against Mecha Godzilla.
When we first see him, he's being Pacific Rim piloted by the chief technical officer for Apex, the guy who may or may not be Serizawa.
We find out that Mecha Godzilla is being telepathically controlled by Ren Serizawa, the son of the late Ishiro Serizawa, who gave up his life to save Godzilla in King of the Monsters by setting off that nuclear bomb in Godzilla's living room.
It does feel weird, though, to introduce Serizawa Jr. just to make him evil, you know?
I wish they'd done more with him. My wife made the wonderful joke that maybe Dad will love me if I become Godzilla. And it's, yeah.
Like, I don't know much of his character motivation, but Serizawa would be really disappointed in him.
Yeah.
Was this supposed to be someone related to Dr. Serizawa? If so, how? And why are they working against Gojira?
Okay, honestly, my least favorite character is Ren Serizawa.
Serizawa's son was a throwaway character.
Who is apparently the son of Dr. Serizawa from the previous two Godzilla movies.
Perhaps he's not. Just another guy in the world with that surname. Odd choice for a writer to make, though.
I didn't even catch he was his son until I looked it up. I missed the introduction, apparently.
Though you wouldn't necessarily gather that from watching the movie itself. I can only imagine that huge chunks of this character's screen time were cut because he ends up being such a simplistic villain.
I don't know, it just felt like an undeveloped plot thread to me.
I feel like they could have easily put in just a couple of lines of dialogue with him expressing maybe frustration at trying to live up to his father's reputation, but nope, nothing at all to redeem this guy except for the laughable trance face that he makes.
But totally dumb that he VR controls the mech. He should be in it, yo.
Ren is able to do this by sitting within the severed head of Ghidorah, and they took the brain from the monster and actually put it in Mecha Godzilla, and it's connected through a bunch of neural networks.
And what happened with the terrorist Stark from the last movie? The giant corporation has the head of Ghidorah now. Did they kill the terrorists, or did they buy it from them? You know, the ones dedicated to destroying humans from the Earth? Just, oh hey, you can have this skull now.
Seems as this incarnation of Mecha Godzilla also is a slight mixture with the idea behind Mecha Ghidorah.
And then you notice that the technology in his eyes looks to be exactly like Orcatech. And so that would explain why every time this thing was activated, Godzilla came flying in to kill it, because it was the red, signal from the Orcatech, the challenge call. So really Apex is responsible for Godzilla acting like a psycho, which I thought was a nice touch.
So I didn't, and even after rewatching this, still don't think the eyes as orcas really makes any sense, particularly because they just leave them on even after it powers down. Like, they're active all the time, and that just seems like a dumb idea.
But Mechagodzilla looks really cool.
We learned that Mecha Godzilla has power supply limitations, which is the real reason that the Apex CEO, Walter, sent the team down to the Hollow Earth.
Really, really cool. I love that he's in here, and he just well represented, I thought.